The boy with perpetual nervousness, starts out very quietly and then, percussion comes in and the song just like slowly builds. And the guitar break, you just hear all these different notes like bouncing around left, center, right, and back and forth. So that's what we were looking to achieve there with that song and really for the whole entire album.
I guess it worked as an opener on the album and also was a set opener. One thing we really didn't like a lot of times, either the club or an MC or whoever it was, would want to introduce the band. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here are the Feelies from New Jersey or whatever. We just thought it would be like really cool if we started playing and took our time and kind of faded up. It had this great effect, like the people in the front of the crowd nearest the stage would kind of realize what was going on, and there would be like a ripple effect. It would gradually work its way to the back of the club. So you could see the awareness of the crowd as the song progressed. And that was always a pretty cool element. That's one thing we kind of wanted to do when we put it on the record.
What we were looking for going in was we did want to create like a lot of movement. Yeah, we kind of grew up listening to the Beatles and the Stones and, a lot of the separation that, those two groups had in their mixes where you'd hear just like the drums out of the left side of the speaker and maybe a guitar part in the lower right corner of the sound spectrum. And we wanted a lot of movement. And so with the boy, we kind of set out to do that. And it's also where we discovered what happens when you go to an extreme with reverb. So on that track, there's like sandpaper. I mean, the typical like kindergarten sort of instrument stuff. And but if you turn the reverb up really high, it doesn't sound like sandpaper at all. It sounds like something else. And we made a lot of use of that, like and even with like other tracks where we just put it up to such a high extreme that like tempo blocks no longer sounded like tempo blocks.
It originally was one of the jam songs that we had done before we even had the lineup. Originally, it was the pre-Feelies band, which was Dave on drums, Bill on bass. I played guitar. We had a singer. So that and Crazy Rhythms kind of evolved from jams that we had when we were still a trio. And then over time, I think there was a point where we kind of got sick of hearing the high frequencies of the cymbals. And so we suggest to Vinny to leave the cymbals out. And that kind of created a little bit of a space that seemed that would be filled nicely with percussion parts. So that's kind of how we started doing the percussion. I had been in a band prior to that. We had a big percussion break, and that was always a big crowd pleaser. People love percussion. It just adds texture, tone, rhythmic elements, a lot of things you can do with different percussion.
It doesn't seem like he does anything, never helps out in the yard. Lets his mother carry his groceries, as he doesn't like working hard. The boy next door is into better things, as far as I can see. The boy next door is into bigger things. The boy next door is me, alright.
I admit I'm kind of a nervous person, so it is a little tongue-in-cheek. And also, if you think of what was going on at the time, the musical landscape, if you will, there was a lot of quirkiness. B-52s, Talking Heads, Devo, even Little Johnny Jewel is pretty quirky. So to me, it doesn't stand out as being different from the other bands that we admired back then, in that sense. It's definitely a song that's influenced by the Modern Lovers, for sure.
Back then, there was a venue in New York called the Mercer Art Center, and the New York Dolls would play there almost like every weekend. I probably saw them no less than like 10 or 12 times. And the Mercer Art Center is kind of a really interesting sort of venue. It had all these different rooms. Teenage Lust would play there. And there was one, I think it was like a New Year's Eve party where the Dolls were playing. And there were a lot of like celebrity people, like Warhol, like Alice Cooper. Everywhere you turn, there were like well-known faces. And both Glenn and I were at that event, and the Modern Lovers performed. And Jonathan came out, and he had like really short hair and like chino pants and a buttoned-up shirt, and kind of like juxtaposed to, the New York Dolls, where guys were dressing like women with platform shoes on and eye makeup and stuff. You had this other image that kind of hit us, and we thought, wow, these guys are the coolest guys in the room. And we kind of took it from there.
It was kind of conscious, but not far removed from the way we looked. I think it was important to kind of stand out. It was tough to stand out. There were a lot of bands, very competitive. So anything you could do to kind of get your foot in the door. And also the 50s were coming back pretty big then. American Graffiti, or Happy Day Show. I've always been a fan of the 50s. Well, it's interesting because I remember back in the day, somebody commented, you dress like old men. So now when we play dressed the same, then it's like, you're old men. So, we don't have to change we don't look ridiculous wearing what we wore back then. A lot of what was going on with the punk just seemed like a little bit like it had been done before. So even though we were playing in New York, we had no interest to move there. People would ask after the record came out, we were going to relocate to New York. We just thought it was crazy. Just I can't imagine not living in the suburbs.
It did loan itself to where we were from and our background. And I think kind of goes part and parcel to our reaction to not only, when you had like groups like the Dead Boys were playing at CBGB's at the time, and they had a certain look, and then their look changed where they got really like very punk rock looking. And, there was the reaction to that whole look. We were attempting to kind of separate the band from that, but also musically in terms of the sound of the band. At the time, there was just this really overdriven guitar sound that we reacted to, so there was the look and the sound that we just reacted to and came up with something different.
Well, he's not like the boys that we